记录时代精神，连接东西方精英翘楚。我是潘磊，这里是英国首都伦敦，欢迎您收看瑞内人物访谈节目。本期节目，我们与您探讨在新的太空竞赛中，亚太地区所发挥的作用和面临的机遇。本期的3位嘉宾分别是 Giuseppe Robetti 博士，Moon Village Association 的创始人。第2位是 Mark Sandock 教授，就职于 Cleveland State University， 主要是负责 Global Space Law Center。我们的第3位嘉宾是 Christophe Bosquillon 主席先生，他是 Automotive Space Future 的公司的创始人。众所周知登月已经不是人类的梦想。载人航天技术的日趋成熟，以在美国和中国为主导，其他太空大国也纷纷加入行列，为人类登月做出贡献。自从阿波罗登月半个世纪以来，人类这一次的目的是要使月球成为人类的第2家园。各种提议的架构围绕着月球表面和地下设施对于未来居住者所面临的环境和技术方面的挑战，对建立这样一个未来居住和工作的外太空基地的法律和监管机制开展了大量的工作。公共和私营部门都在积极寻求探索外太空的商业可信度、财务上的可持续性、法律上可执行的新太空空间拓展蓝图。本次网络研讨会，专家就如何通过对外交途径和国际合作来建立有效的预防和调解月球上冲突的协调机制。众所周知，商业发展是重中之重，然而如何确保它对科学和经济的影响确实造福于人类社会呢？亚太地区及东盟国家的和平协调与合作是必经之路。通过统一的空间法律构架，使外太空商业拓展有法可依，以便促进轨道外太空的生态系统的良性运营模式。The first question, welcome to the Giuseppe. So thank you for your time to join us today. Please tell us more about Moon Village Association and Global Expert Group on Sustainable Lunar Activity. What do you do? What is your mission, please? 首先，我们请 Giuseppe 先生为我们介绍下更多的关于月球村协会和GEGSLA 可持续月球活动全球专家组的背景与使命。Giuseppe, please.
Okay, so first of all, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you, Renee Pan, for this invitation. So I will do my first introduction by showing a movie, and that's what I'm going to do. And then I will come back with explanation. Okay, so as you probably have seen, this has been a general introduction of the Moon Village Association. So I'm going to add a few other points because, of course, the video was quite quick. So I'm going to explain, of course, the root of the organization is to bring together, as the video has indicated, basically all stakeholders interested in the moon exploration and utilization. These stakeholders are industry, government, space agency, international organization, non-governmental organization, and last but not least, the public. It is based on this consideration that we have created the organization. Basically, the endeavor of exploring and utilizing the moon, it's so important and so big for humanity that we need to bring all the countries together. And since there was no organization that was attempting to do that, we launched in 2017 this huge endeavor, because when people was asking me, why are you thinking you're going to do? So when we started, a lot of people were extremely, let's say, wary of having any result by this organization. But I can say that after nearly 3.5 years, nearly 4 years, I think we have reached quite a number of good results. We are member of the United Nations, as you have seen, COPOS, so we are able to bring concern and issue related to the Moon Village. And most important, the concept of the Moon Village is a concept of open, basically, cooperation. So what we do is being shown in the video. Given the amount of time, therefore, I will refer to our website, Moon Village website. Just a final word about the global expert group, which has been specially defined. Well, in order indeed to go peacefully to the moon, you need to know what to do and how to do it. And so this is the goal of this group, global expert group, is bringing together major stakeholders from all the world to try to define the common level playing field to avoid the risk of future, let's say, problems, which could happen if there is no coordination mechanism for the moon. So I will leave it there as an introduction. Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful introduction. So let us welcome Mark to join us. Mark, you are the expert in the space law, and please tell us how space law interact with the work of MVA does, and then what kind of change you and MVA want to bring on moving forward, please. So Mark 您好，您作为空间法的专家，您是如何在与月球村协会互动协作的呢？以及您和月球村协会想要带来什么样的改变 ？Mark, please. Mark, you need to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you for the honor of participating in this forum. I'm very glad to speak as a member of the Moon Village Association, which has undertaken, as Giuseppe Ribaldi has explained, the formidable task of trying to establish ground rules that everyone will follow, whether it's a public space agency or private companies. Everyone participating in this new adventure to return to the moon have shared concerns. And the main objective of the Moon Village Association, if I could be so bold, and it's been, I think, the main objective of many space lawyers, is to avoid conflict. And where there is conflict, to resolve it peacefully. But the other goal is to facilitate the expansion of human activity on the moon. So with those goals in mind, we've moved forward and not only confirmed existing law, because space law is nothing new. It's been around for 60 years or more, depending on who you talk to. So we have existing rules that are in place, and we are working hard to confirm how they would apply to the moon and that they must apply to lunar activity. But we're going a little further than that, because the rule set that we have is not comprehensive. There are some lacunae, some gaps that need filling, such as how to regulate the extraction of resources on the moon. And so we're taking on some very innovative areas as well, where we don't have clear rules, and trying to establish best practices so that we're all able to cohabitate peacefully.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Now let us welcome Chris to join us. Chris, please tell us more about the space business, and can we actually do business with can we actually do the business with on the moon, and what is the MVA's contribution related to that? Chris， 请您谈一下您对人类在不远的将来在月球上做生意的看法。月球村协会对此的贡献是什么呢 ？Chris, please.
All right, thank you very much, Renee. Also, really appreciate your professionalism in organizing this webinar. So, what I want to talk to you today as an MVA member who is strongly involved with the MVA business part, which is the lunar commerce and economics, is that so far on the moon, we have strong work on technical architecture and definitely excellent work on the legal architecture, thanks to Mark. But now we need also to do some work on the business architecture. And this is what we do by building what we call a lunar commerce portfolio. And we do that, first of all, by looking at the year 2040. And we call that the mature phase. And we say by 2040, 45, there will be a permanent human presence on the moon. There will be intense industrial activity. And the key word there is autonomous. The moon will be autonomous from the Earth. It will be self-sustaining. It will not depend on the Earth anymore for supplies, for basic life support. And right now in 2021 until 2030, we will be looking at several missions, and there, of course, the main customer will still be the government. Whereas from 2040 onward, the private sector will be very strong on the moon. So we really look at the moon like continent number 8. And what are you going to do in a new territory? You want to know what your markets are, where you can do industrial activity and business. So basically, we look at transport to and from the moon, a lot of payload and a lot of people to move between Earth and moon. We look at transportation on the moon itself. We need comms and navigation. We need a lot of energy and power, of course, infrastructure, construction, manufacturing, habitat, and storage is absolutely necessary. We have a lot of products and services that will be needed, starting with launch pads, starting with everyday life hardware, and also data and governance, because everything hinges on space resource utilization, mining, and resource extraction on the moon is essential. And finally, we need agriculture in order to be able to produce food that we can actually eat, and other things that we can consume in order to support the human presence there on the moon. And we really look at it as a real business situation. That means we want to understand the value chains, description of the market and evaluation of demand, the customers, suppliers, because once you understand your value chain as an investor and as an entrepreneur, you know exactly where you want to position in this economy. So we'll be looking at market drivers and constraints, which will be deliverables for 2021. And in 2022, we will keep fine-tuning those models, and then we will look at the numbers, the quantified parameters, the demand, so that as soon as we have numbers, we can start putting this in cost estimates, in pricing strategies, in risk management model, and we can finally talk a language that investors understand, as well as government regulators and, of course, space agencies that will decide priorities, budgets, and who will be at the center of those public and private partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So, gentlemen, space and the moon aren't just about the business and the law and the technique. So, what about preventing the war and benefiting the humankind? 先生们，众所周知，太空和月球的主题不仅仅限于商业、法律和技术有关的议题的讨论。下面，请专家们为我们阐释在月球上的探索，人类是如何防止引发战争，如何造福人类的呢 ？Gentlemen, please. First, Giuseppe.
Okay, so thank you. Indeed, basically going to the moon all together, which is the concept of the moon village, will not only prevent war, which we are going to describe, but will increase the global cooperation. The International Space Station, it is a very successful program, which has involved at least 17 countries in its execution. We are looking now to the moon village, which should include as many countries as possible. I really wish that out of 200 countries which are presently with the United Nations, we will be able to involve maybe at least half of it. So as you can see, the challenge is there, but also the benefit and the perspective for humanity are huge. We are talking a new start. Humanity on the moon as a second chance to start in a way which is more peaceful than it has been on Earth. As we all know, history of humankind is not an extremely peaceful history. It's made out of, let's say, friction. And so I think in a nutshell, the moon village will enable to cooperate basically in order to work together and basically use for the benefit of all humankind the resources on the moon. Therefore, will not only prevent conflict by bringing together countries which are not normally working on the same project. To name one, for instance, China and United States. As we all know, at this point in time, it's difficult as the two different programs of the International Space Station are demonstrating, but we really hope, and with the MVA, we are giving an important contribution to bring together all these countries at the same table, virtual table, in order really to work together for the good of humanity. And the last consideration is, as we might discuss later, going to the moon is also important for everybody. It's not only good for the citizen, basically the scientist, but is good for all humanity. Why? Because like Columbus, when he went to what is now America, United States, discovered a new continent and everything which came with it, I'm pretty sure that going to the moon is going to help us in solving our global challenges, like the United Nations is indicating to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, please.
Yes, thank you. Let me begin with the law as the lawyer in the room here. And we have the Outer Space Treaty, Article 4, which addresses the militarization of space and the limits that are placed on the military use of outer space. First, we're told that we cannot station weapons of mass destruction in orbit nor on any celestial bodies, including the moon. So no weapons of mass destruction, that much is clear. We should all remember that the beauty of the Outer Space Treaty is largely as an arms control document. It goes on in Article 4 to say that the moon and other celestial bodies shall be used by all states parties exclusively for peaceful purposes. The moon is to be used exclusively for peaceful purposes. What does that mean? There are different national interpretations of that, but I think it's generally understood that it does allow the militarization of space to the extent that it's used for defensive purposes. However, the treaty goes on. The establishment of military bases, installations and fortifications, the testing of any type of weapons, and the conduct of military maneuvers. So no military bases, no weapons testing of any type, and no military maneuvers. All of those are forbidden on celestial bodies. However, military personnel can be used for scientific research, and also for any other peaceful purposes. Again, could be interpreted as allowing for all defensive use of the military. So this is the challenge as Giuseppe laid down. Do we bring with us as we return to the moon all of the problems of human nature, crime, and war? Or do we have a fresh start and we interpret these legal provisions broadly and observe them and use the moon only for peaceful purposes?
Thank you. So Chris, please.
Yes. Okay. So next slide. All right. So the question is about, does space and the moon business is only to make government, more powerful and private companies and billionaires more wealthy, or is it really going to benefit everyone? Can we have an impact on science and economy that benefits society and humankind at large, not merely people involved in space business? Well, first of all, it's fair to say that today, space already has a positive impact on Earth, because with all the satellites Earth observation, we can already do a few things dealing with climate, water, agriculture, the sea, critical infrastructure, and so on. And in the next 5 to 10 years, as we have all those mega constellations being launched of satellites, this will really propel the data economy. So you will have a lot of new business models, which will be much more fine-tuned to everyday life for both people and business. You will have new fintech business model, new insurance model. So this will be very beneficial for life on Earth. But when you look more forward, like 10, 20, 30 years ahead, well, first of all, with all those settlements on the moon and in space, we will have a much better understanding of human, individual, and collective resilience in a tough environment. And that should also help us to deal with our problem on Earth for those, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 billion people who are still living under the poverty threshold. In science and technology, we will have important discoveries like synthesizing new pharmaceutical molecules. You know that gravity is bad for the bones because of calcium, but if we understand osteoporosis much better, we will be able to cure all those aging populations we have in the world. And the same goes for technology and materials. We will be able to manufacture new components which will improve the performance of all the machines that support our everyday life. And so it goes for water and waste treatment, circular economy, You will have more space-based solar power, which is good for, global warming. You will have more advanced method for organic agriculture and producing food to feed the world. A lot of improvement in navigation, in comms, in robotics, in autonomous systems. And because you'll be able to use the moon, rare earth, the metal resources, that will improve not only the economy on Earth, but the ability to move industry out of Earth and put it in space. And finally, all of this will create a lot of data, and that data will also help to develop new business model and to basically help improve everyday's life for everybody on Earth and not just people involved in space business. Thank you.
Thank you for your all. So, gentlemen, how do you see the perspective for the space and the moon business in Asia Pacific? 先生们，请您们谈论一下，您是如何看待亚太地区对于推进太空和月球发展的呢？First, Giuseppe, please.
Well, I think the Asia Pacific is the most dynamic region of the world in terms of economic and innovation. So having briefly described what the potential of the moon market are, it's clear that for the Asia Pacific, this is a huge opportunity. When you look to the major stakeholders which have capability to reach and work on the moon already now, the large majority is in the Asia Pacific. So Asia Pacific has at this point in time all the right ingredients, technology and innovation to really play a major role in the moon village and its implementation, meaning in the exploration and utilization of the moon in a peaceful way. So I think it's important that the Asia Pacific country work with each other. We have seen initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative for the infrastructure on Earth. Well, we might also see similar initiative also related to low Earth orbit or orbit around Earth as well as to the moon. So in a nutshell, the huge potential of the Asia Pacific will really provide a big boost to the moon village and will stabilize and will give an opportunity of all the countries of the Asia Pacific to really play a major role. Thank you.
Thank you. So Mark, please.
Yes. We all know how capable the Asia Pacific region and its peoples are. It's extraordinary what China is doing, what the entrepreneurs of Korea are doing, Japan. I could go on. I would just encourage the countries in the Asia Pacific region to pay attention to what it is that gave rise to these extraordinarily innovative American companies. And I can speak to the world about that. And I encourage everyone, all governments and space agencies, to understand their ability to create the same types of companies. These companies didn't, SpaceX, Blue Origin, Astrobotic, Firefly, all of these new companies that are springing up from the Earth, like springtime plants. It doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from NASA's procurement policies that supports the private industry as the initial customer to these companies before they can begin offering commercial services. And I encourage other countries in the world to emulate that model. And one other thing I'd like to say is that I invite and I encourage all the peoples of the Asia Pacific to cooperate with the Western world, with the United States. It's unfortunate that the Chinese path to space is parallel to the United States rather than being a single pathway. And I think we can use space as a laboratory of peace and cooperation, as we have on the International Space Station. And I'd love to see that spirit of international cooperation continue among East and West on the moon as well. From East and West.
Thank you, Mark. So Chris, please.
All right, so I'm sharing the screen again. All right. All right, so look at this picture, the art. It's an open source study that has just been released by an American analytics company, and it shows the state of space today. There are 30 governmental organizations. There are about 100 there are 10,000 companies and 5,000 investors in total. And basically, all those companies put together account for assets of 4 trillion US dollars. So 4 trillion US dollar, and that amount today is only going to go up and up and up, and it's absolutely straightforward. It's a no. We claim its fair share of economy, not anymore a planetary economy between the Earth and the Moon, and eventually system in trillions and trillions of dollars. All those blue boxes, these are the markets, these are the industrial and service sectors we were mentioning earlier. But to give you a practical idea for Asia Pacific is already very strong in orbit, and there are a lot more opportunities to develop, like servicing satellites with autonomous systems. Singapore is doing that already. Of course, there is a whole data business derivative coming from satellites, and this will be very much developed in Asia Pacific, especially Asian, which is very much a data-oriented society in fintech, in insurance, in legal tech, in banking, in taking care of people's lives in general. But there is more. There are also a number of value chains, like we mentioned before. It can be materials, it can be robotics, it can be definitely pharmaceuticals. And then remember that Singapore built its fortune on starting as a trading and shipping hub before Singapore became basically a financing hub and now even a tech hub. And this will be exactly the same story in space. First, you will have shipping and trading, moving payload, moving people around. And Asia Pacific is exactly positioned to as well as have a piece of that action. And finally, when you go to space resource utilization, at first it sounds a little bit scary because it sounds very long and very expensive. But when you look at Asia Pacific in the mining industry and also in the LNG, liquefied natural gas extraction, to have an investment horizon of 30 to 40 years, to have project financing packages from 10 to $40 billion, and to have public and private partnerships. It's totally routine. It's business as usual in Asia. And it's going to work exactly the same when we extract resources on the moon with the same level of financing and a very similar timeline. All you need to do is to fine-tune your legal frameworks, of course, and your risk management model, and eventually to profile the life of your investment as you would do for a mining or gas venture on Earth. And this is going to happen, and clearly Asia Pacific is very much positioned to do that because Asia Pacific has also a long tradition of public and private sector partnership, and in particular Asian will do it either on its own and through international cooperation. And in our view, this is the way to go for humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, insightful discussion. So the last question is over to Giuseppe, please. Giuseppe, what would you be your message to Asia Pacific nation for peaceful and sustainable development in space and on the moon? Giuseppe, 您对亚太国家就太空和月球上的和平与可持续发展有何展望呢？ Giuseppe, please.
Well, the Asia-Pacific country is home to 40% roughly of the population, and therefore I think is a major part of all the world. So, however, of course, there is a need to accelerate the number of sustainable development goals as the United Nations have indicated. So I believe the exploration and utilization of the moon resources via the Moon Village concept, which is bringing all these concepts together, should be taken as a good opportunity for all the country, basically to try to use this, let's say, new opportunity given by the Moon Village, let's say, concept to build capacity in many countries, to increase basically cooperation, as well as also to involve public. You know, the exploration of the moon is deeply rooted in all culture. In China, as you know, there is, you know better than me, the Moon Festival and many other things. So the moon is really part of everyday life for many centuries. So the chance that we have now in these years, I mean, we are very fortunate that we have a chance to witness a peaceful and sustainable utilization and exploration of the moon. This is a dream that so many centuries and thousands of years has been in all culture, and in particular in the Asian countries. So the country of the Asian Pacific has a huge opportunity to use, as I said, the Moon Village as a way to address also those global challenges, use let's say, what we need for the moon to improve the situation on Earth, to improve gender policy. It's an important element. As I said earlier, we are trying to have a new reset on the moon by bringing and trying to, let's say, make better than what we did on Earth. So in a nutshell, via the all skill and asset existing in the Asian Pacific, given the huge, let's say, economic, let's say, market already existing, the moon is the logical step for a sustainable lunar exploration and settlement. And I really wish that the country which are already leading in this area between obviously China, Japan, and India, Russia, and so forth, they will really continue, but they will do not alone. And I think many countries, including, of course, China, are leading the way by trying to involve as many countries as possible. And I think this is the way forward in a nutshell, to use the moon as a goal to create, open new market, establish new cooperation, and try to accelerate the sustainable development which are needed for all the region. And of course, finally, given the fact that I'm the president of the Moon Village Association, of course, I would like to see many more, let's say, members, institutional, as well as individual from the Asian country, Asia Pacific country, because I think it is important that we also have a big participation. And with that, I would really like to thank you very much for the opportunity that you have given us. Thank you.
Thank you, Giuseppe. 再次感谢专家们做客我们的访谈节目，希望我们理事会的朋友们线下将您的问题留言给我，专家们将就您的问题给予回复。欢迎您收看本期的委内人物访谈，我们下期再会。